They may be the best big game hunters in the galaxy, but let's be honest, not all hunters are created equal. And it's this line of thinking that led me down the path to the inevitable question, which predator is actually the best hunter? Now, usually these idiots come to Earth only then to have their hunting bros stop by to pick up their caskets. But before that happens, they can often rack up an impressive body count. But before we begin, let's break down some ground rules here. We're going to be grading these space specimens on two main criteria: the total kill count and their overall competence, such as how well did they execute their hunt, difficulty of targets, and did they go out like absolute punks. As your judge and jury, I can award up to 5 points for competence, and I can award as low as -5 points for incompetence. Now, originally I was going to pull the Gimli and say no matter how big each kill is,
that still only counts as one.
But after thinking it over, maybe that's not entirely fair. So here's the drill. I'll give 2 points for something that's like big game, and 5 points if it's some sort of, otherworldly monster, I guess. Does that sound fair to you? So that's 1 point for killing a human, 1 point for killing a predator, and 1 point for killing an alien. Now, before you debate that, I thought about making aliens 2 points as well, but let's be honest here, they're mostly blasting away at them with shoulder cannons, which is kinda like fishing with dynamite. So, only 1 point for them. Maybe if they had been more sporting. So is all of this simple enough for you? Good? Then let's find out who is our gold medal predator. And for the record, yes, I know they're actually called Youtja or whatever.
Well, we took a vote. Predator's cooler, right? Yeah.
Let's begin. First up is the original predator, the one who started it all, and the one who very nearly ended it all, given that they nearly made the predator look like a giant fish man. Luckily, they brought in legendary artist Stan Winston to redesign him into the classic monster we all know. He was actually supposed to be played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, before ultimately they changed the design up and replaced him with Kevin Peter Hall. But if you're starting to feel a little disappointed that we didn't get Jean-Claude Van Damme in an alien costume fighting Arnold Schwarzenegger, I will have you know that Peter Cullen was actually the voice of the Predator. Yeah, all those weird gargles and clicks were just Optimus Prime, I guess, in a sound booth. However, we're not here to judge on originality. We're here to judge on lethality. The Predator's targets in this film are of a high level of difficulty, an elite paramilitary team sent into the jungle to recover the survivors of a helicopter crash. These are all trained killers, and just one of them would probably be a worthy adversary. And this film decides to make things difficult for me early on. First, there's this question of if the guerrilla fighters or the Predator were the ones who shot down the helicopter. But I do think the film makes it pretty clear that Arnold recognizes the damage as being from a heat-seeking missile, not, some weird plasma bolt. So I think we can safely write off that conspiracy theory. What's more difficult is that it's revealed early on that Arnold's team was not the first one sent in. There was another crew of 6 soldiers that were sent in to recover the captives. They find 3 of them skinned and hanging in a tree, a clear sign that the Predator got to them. So we can go ahead and add the first 3 points to the scoreboard. What is less clear is what happened to the other 3 men. I'm not so sure it's safe to assume the Predator got to them. We never see their bodies. So I guess it's possible they got killed by guerrilla fighters, or maybe were even lost to the woods in their panic. We don't really know. So they don't get to be included on the scoreboard. Now maybe they clarify all this in some comic, but we are going purely based on the films and the films alone. If it wasn't in the movie, we're not counting it, okay? From here, we watch the Predator slowly and methodically hunt down the team of protagonists. It hides in trees and uses a cloaking device and heat vision to pick them off kind of one by one. First, Shane Black gets sliced up, the sexual Tyrannosaurus gets shot through the chest.
This stuff will make you a goddamn sexual Tyrannosaurus. Just like me.
The guy I mostly remember as the Whispering Man gets shot through the head, and Apollo Creed gets his arm shot off, and then he's stabbed. Yeah, that was just adding insult to injury, I think. There's a tracker in the group, and although we don't see him actually being killed on screen, we can hear his just kind of blood-curdling screams. And so I think it's pretty safe to assume that, he's been predatized. Lastly, the Predator shoots Poncho in the head, racking up a final kill count of 9 confirmed kills. Because this creature is slow and careful, it makes very few big, sweeping mistakes. It does not seem all that interested in making a challenge for itself. Kind of like how a deer hunter isn't looking to have hand-to-hand combat with the deer. He stalks his prey and then takes them out with maximum efficiency. He's not perfect though. At one point, he stands right in front of a dude, cloaked with his eyes glowing though, and he's easily just shot up, which is also what clues them in that they can kill him. So that's not great. It's kind of a pointless mistake. He also accidentally stumbles into a net trap, but fairly easily escapes. These small, tiny little kind of flaws in his plan, they're all offset by basically showing examples of him being a silent, deadly killer. After all, the entire premise of the original film was inspired by a mix of The Most Dangerous Game and as an analogy for guerrilla warfare in the Vietnam War. This predator is able to follow this crew for miles without being detected, as it just kind of studies them. It's also able to later sneak into their camp without triggering any of their tripwires or spotters, all to steal back its trophies. You gotta have your trophies. You need that street cred back on Predator Planet. It utilizes human voices as duck calls to trick his prey or spook them. He even establishes the basic predator code of only going after game it considers sporting. Just like how you wouldn't shoot a duck if it was sitting on the water, this predator will only hunt what it considers to be a worthy adversary or threat. It does, however, have a major flaw in all its plans. That would be in its reliance on some pretty crappy heat vision. Later in the movie, the predator does take off this mask, but he's shown to be almost blind without it. But I'll also say he's kind of almost blind with it too. Mythbusters actually did do an episode showing that if you covered yourself with mud, it would trick heat sensors, but only for a few seconds before your body heat would actually raise the temperature of the mud. Yet this predator's equipment seems even less advanced than our own human technology. At least if he's gonna go down though, he goes down in style. This predator is not defeated because he does anything wildly stupid. He just meets his match in the Goliath of a man that is Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. Arnold uses the mud, like we said before, to lower his body temperature, then rigs up exploding arrows, spears, and then uses them in combination to damage the predator's equipment, including its cloaking device. The predator removes its mask and then challenges Arnold to a almost hand-to-hand duel. One would think it's almost honorable, if not for the fact that Arnold decides he's going to lure him into a double trap. Even then, half blind, the predator can recognize that it's an obvious trap and avoids it. But his fate is sealed by underestimating his prey and being led straight into the second trap, a log that drops down and fatally wounds him. Now, as much as I've praised him, through this first segment for having a code of honor, I will say he still is a very sore loser. He activates a mini nuke in his suit and nearly takes Arnold out with him. Just for the record here, even if he had killed Arnold, I still wouldn't count it, okay? These bombs are nothing more than a pitiful and pathetic white flag. It's just a surrender saying, I'm not good enough, I'm taking you with me. And I'll be damned if I give any points for that. Look, there's a reason this film became an action classic. A mix of commando action, tense suspense, and a simple science fiction concept of what if there were aliens that hunted humans just for sport. This predator would define everything the creature would become known for, and the franchise by extension. The iconic look, its general method of stalking and hunting humans, the technology, but also being just a little bit petty. And I think even to this day, this predator perhaps showed the highest level of competency, and any missteps are mostly due to the dangerous nature of that prey. In the end, he did just have the misfortune of meeting his match. And for that, I'm going to award the first predator full points.
Get to the chopper!
Moving on to the sequel, we change from a city setting to a concrete jungle. This predator has made the decision to put himself in the middle of a citywide war between cops and gang members. Now, originally this film had been conceived with Arnold returning to the main role, but instead he's now been swapped out for Danny Glover's kind of tired, grizzled old cop. This, however, set the tone for the franchise as an anthology series, with a rotating cast and new predators hunting new prey. The targets here, they are admittedly a little less impressive, especially as the predator goes after minimum wage police officers, bottom tier criminal scum, or even unarmed city commuters, as if having to ride commuter trains and buses wasn't bad enough. Now you got an alien killing you. Anyways, they're not really the most dangerous prey, especially compared to the original, who was hunting highly trained killers. But there is no denying how bloodthirsty this particular predator is with the insane body count. We're introduced to the city hunter when we see the aftermath of it killing an entire room full of a Jamaican gang. I managed to count about 4 bodies here, including the one hanging from the ceiling. Later, the Predator gets a jump on more gang members who have a dude strung up and they're torturing him. He shoots one through the chest, and then he uses a net to catch another. Now, he doesn't actually directly kill this dude. No, he's actually shot by his buddies who just are kind of wildly firing around the room. But we know for a fact that these nets will actually, given enough time, turn people into little cubes. So he would have died if just left there anyways. So we're gonna go ahead and give it to him. Next, the Predator uses a hook to kill another one, sneaks up and stabs another, then spears one more just for good measure, then fires his claws off at the last. And since sneak attacks seem to be the Predator's style, he then attacks a detective distracted by some innocent sleuthing. And if that seems like a low blow, his next one is to kill like an aging 50, 60-year-old gang leader who's armed with nothing but a sword. You may see that this Predator may have a higher body count, but he's considerably less sporting about it. And on top of that, he's considerably more petty. He stalks Danny Glover through the entire movie, but doesn't bother to ever kill him despite having multiple chances. No, he seems more interested in killing everyone around him and making him feel like he's going crazy. Now our city hunter gets his biggest killing spree in a train sequence where the flashing strobe lights here and heat vision made it almost impossible to see what was actually going on. Very hard to get a solid count, but I feel pretty safe in saying there were at least 8 more fatalities. After the attack, it's mentioned that 5 gang members were killed, and then we see him kill at least 3 commuters on board. One of them actually looked like it was just some old woman. Maybe some old woman with a small handgun in her purse, but still, really? Okay? An old lady trophy, I guess, good job. Yeah, your hunting bros are gonna be real impressed by that. Although he may kill innocent old ladies, he does have somewhat of a code of honor, considering he spares a pregnant cop. Later, Glover finds the Predator ripping off the head of poor Bill Paxton. And with this death, this makes Bill Paxton the first actor to be killed by the trifecta: an alien in Aliens, a Terminator from the original Terminator, and now a Predator. It's like winning the Triple Crown. This Predator also does not seem that concerned with being stealthy. He has absolutely no qualms about just attacking people in the broad daylight, or he doesn't even make any kind of attempt to cover his tracks in any way. At one point, he runs right through a bunch of news cameras without a care in the world. He is so indiscreet that Gary Busey is able to get together a task force to try and bring him in, all hoping to capture him for both his technology and to, I guess, turn him into a lab rat. And they actually do come up with a pretty clever way to try and catch him. More clever than anything that Danny Glover comes up with in the movie. They plan to wear suits that would mask their heat signature and then spray down a freezer with molecules that will allow them to break up his cloaking tech. It's pseudoscience-y. Don't worry about it. It's a plan, at least. But it's completely wrecked when it's revealed that his face mask has a wide selection of different visual spectrums to choose from. And now, he's not gonna get beaten by mud and medicinal flowers like his fellow hunters. It took them a little bit, but they finally learned their lesson. Maybe only seeing heat is not a very good way to hunt. Maybe it has some disadvantages. Anyways, because he's able to see in lots of different visual spectrums, this allows him to get the jump on 5 agents and add them to the wrong side of his spear. He then tracks down the overconfident Busey and kills him as well. This brings him to a final total of 27 kills. Our Predator could have called it a day, taken his stack of skulls and gone home. Perhaps even the easy victor of this entire little competition. But instead, he stays to go out just as like a complete loser. This guy has perhaps one of the most pathetic final displays of all the films. He's lured into a freezer and just sort of stands there while Glover shoots him full of a bunch of rounds and nearly kills him. How he survived, I'm still not even completely sure. When he ultimately escapes up to the roof, he isn't paying any attention and Glover is able to easily tackle him from behind. Which leads to an embarrassing scenario where the Predator is forced to cling for dear life, like Mufasa on the side of the cliff, hoping that he just doesn't fall and plummet to his death. The Predator then tries to cheat his way out by blowing himself up with his wrist bomb, but he can't even do that right because Danny Glover cuts off his arm. It's a scene they actually did shoot in live action. Of course, they had to. There wasn't a lot of CGI back then, but they hung a one-armed stuntman off the building and then dropped him in this impressive cable sequence. I wish the Predator overall was as impressive as the stuntman portraying him. This dude survives his fall, but then hides out in a bathroom to lick his wounds and then runs when Glover shows up, leading him straight to his ship, which it turns out he didn't even bother to lock the doors on. You're in Los Angeles, man, okay? Crime-filled Los Angeles. Rookie move. So Glover finds the ship and wanders his way in like a clueless tourist. There he finds skeletons of many different animals. Now there is something to say about this film expanding the mythology of this franchise, both in the Predator's equipment. It also builds into how the Predators honor their fallen and their killer. But the biggest thing was the film's introduction of an innocent little Easter egg in the form of an alien skull. This tiny little inclusion that seems meaningless on the surface would tie these two franchises together in a big way. And we're still seeing the effects even in the most recent movie. Despite that, I'm still not giving him any points for the skulls. We have no confirmation this Predator killed him or under what circumstances. So we're gonna just write him off as nice decoration, but nothing more. And so what is our climax? Does Glover come up with this genius strategy to, defeat this larger alien beast? No, the Predator just engages him in hand-to-hand combat. But where the original Predator knocked Arnold Schwarzenegger's lights out, again, in his prime, and he only ultimately lost to brains over brawn, this Predator doesn't even lose to brains or brawn. Despite being half his size, Glover doesn't even do anything really clever, and he doesn't physically outmatch him either. He's just apparently better at stabbing people than him. And it's not like he had the disc hidden on his person either. He was using that as his primary weapon. He just stabs him. The Predator just loses because he's bad at his job. That's it. Lost to a city cop close to retirement who's out of shape. So actually he's not out of shape. I actually think that Danny Glover was in quite good shape for this movie. So there is that. I still have a bit of a paradox here. On one hand, the Predator built up a massive pile of dead bodies, but on the other hand, this guy also relied on surprise attacks, hunting just defenseless commuters at times, and then putting up one of the worst final displays against a weaker enemy. It seems to me this guy really isn't worth much when you strip him of his technology and any advantage of surprise. For that final display, yeah, he's getting -1 points for incompetence.
Lions, the tigers, the bears. Oh my.
Moving right along. Alien vs. Predator. Remember how I said Predator linked these two in a big way? Well, it would take nearly a decade to pay off that tease, but eventually Fox did get to it and brought these two franchises together in a movie Ridley Scott would call milking the franchise, and James Cameron would describe as the second or third best Alien movie ever made. So that's a pretty wide differing opinion. In fact, Ridley Scott afterwards went out of his way to make a series of movies that completely made these non-canon. So a little spiteful, but what are you gonna do? It's his franchise, he could do what he wants. Now, these two series had already merged in the comics, but by bringing them to the big screen, Alien vs. Predator became the highest grossing entry of the entire franchise. And after 10 years, probably is responsible for resurrecting the Predator brand. But that's money for you, sweet, sweet money. The Predators here, they have two main targets. The aliens, obviously, but also the Weyland-Yutani group, who discover an alien temple under the ice in Antarctica, where the Predators have frozen an alien queen as part of this hunting ritual. It's probably a big deal for them to be hunting the perfect organism.
Perfect organism,
as they call it. For a perfect organism, they do die a lot. Now, I'm going to be honest here. This one is still a big guilty pleasure for me. For one, it was the first Alien and Predator movie I ever watched, and my entry points into both their franchises. Is it dumb? Well, yeah, it is. But it also has a lot of creativity, whether that be in the one-on-one fight in the temple that seems ripped out of Cube, the interesting mythology, and the final conflict with the Queen, which at that time was the most advanced animatronic ever made. And it still looks fantastic to this day. I still stand by the opinion that this is a terrible Alien movie, but a pretty decent Predator film. But decent, I don't think is gonna cut it. So how does our Predator actually fare? Well, first off, we don't have one Predator, but 3. However, the first 2 are kind of dispatched fairly early, and despite an entertaining 1v1 fight, they mostly go out without much impact. So we are gonna focus on the primary Predator, named Scar. And you could maybe consider him the first kind of protagonist Predator of the series, at least in a way. I mean, yeah, he kills a few humans, but in the second half, he's largely allied with the humans against the greater alien threat. But having 3 of them does make the opening a little hard to score. The scientists all go down to the pyramid, but they leave 5 security members up to guard the entry. The 3 Predators arrive and kill them all. It's really hard to see who is killing who because they're invisible for pretty much the entire sequence. In the end, I am going to give Scar those first 4 kills because he was present, actively hunting them, and played a hand in their deaths. Now, some can argue that's a little too charitable, but I mean, what am I gonna do? Give it to their useless co-hunters? They just die in the first 15 minutes. It's a waste. So let's put in our little headcanon that it was just, our one competent hunter that was going around and killing everyone. At least in that opening sequence when they're invisible. Anyways, they find out that the humans stole their slick shoulder cannons and the predators stalk them. Scar kills one more with a noose and then another with his spear. Fast forward a little bit more and his buddies are all getting killed by aliens. And while they're out not being good at their job, our main predator kills a fairly harmless old man, bringing his human tally up to 7. We later get a flashback where some predators kill thousands of aliens with the bombs in their suits, kind of like the original tried to do. Like I said, these will not be counted because they are dirty cheaters. Back to our main man, Scar, he then easily kills an alien by casually cutting off its head, which, mostly highlights the incompetence of his 2 hunting buddies. We see his early reflexes when he cuts a facehugger out of the air. But then again, he does let a second one catch him with his mask off, resulting in him becoming a proud Predalien mommy. He then easily kills 2 more aliens once he has his plasma cannon. It's just like shooting fish in a barrel. Perfect organism. Their only kryptonite is apparently bullets, being shot with long-range weapons. Once the dust settles, we can see that there's one more dead alien body on the ground. Scar goes on to ally with a scientist, and they find their fellow researcher infected by a chestburster. Now, she kills the co-worker, but then a chestburster does still pop out of his chest. Scar catches it and breaks its neck. Now, this is a baby alien, so I'm not sure, should I count it as a full alien? Or does it count as, I don't know. I'm gonna give him half point. Again, it's a charity. He's a charity case, this one, all right? So we're gonna give him his half point. Right when he seems to be on a roll, he accidentally allows 5 aliens to somehow, I'm not sure how they didn't hear him, but he allows 5 aliens to sneak up on him. Because of this, he has to be rescued by his human partner. Now that's embarrassing, especially for a Youtja, or whatever they're called. Probably can't even show his face in public again. He leaves behind his soup bomb and blows up the remaining. Now, I know I said I wouldn't include the soup bombs, but I mostly said that because, they're used as almost this surrender. But in this case, our predator wasn't defeated, and he doesn't actually blow himself up. He just uses it as a weapon. So with that in mind, again, I'm gonna be courteous and give it to him. I am the judge. I get to make these decisions. Now, it's a little hard to know how many he actually killed, given the film's pretty confusing on how many people actually went down to the temple and were turned into little alien incubators. We also see a lot of aliens attack each other to try and use their blood to free the queen. So how many died there and how many are left? It's not clear. As a result, I'm already giving these under duress, so we're just going to give him the 5 aliens that we saw on screen. No more. That's all you get. But it's not over yet, because it is time for a comeback round. Unfortunately, the queen does make it to the surface, and the predator very nearly takes it out single-handedly, stabbing it in the neck with a spear, with the human only really helping to help strap a chain to a barrel to sink her to the bottom of the ocean. Again, this is a great-looking sequence that still looks pretty darn good today. 5 points to our first monster slayer. Now, it'd probably all be sunshine and rainbows, popping the champagne, and having yourself a little party, if it wasn't for the fact that Scar ends up shish kebab to the end of the alien queen's tail. Again, I'm not gonna say this guy had a lot in the way of missteps. He's clearly more competent than the other members of his group. He accomplishes the goals of stopping the alien outbreak, and he has a decent kill count of 7 humans and 7 aliens. There's just one little problem here with old Scar. Ever seen a zombie movie where there's always some idiot who refuses to tell the group that he's been bitten, and as a result, he becomes a zombie and kills everyone? Yeah, that's this guy. He gets infected by a facehugger early on and tells no one, allowing his buddies to pick him up and fly away while an alien hybrid baby is growing in his chest. As a result of this, all his efforts are rendered pretty pointless by the time the sequel comes around. Now, one could say, who was he going to tell? After all his friends were dead and he was dealing with a crisis. I don't know, he could have done something. I mean, leave a note, say, hey, I got an alien baby growing in me. There are ways out of this. Write it in the snow with a stick before you die. As a result, I'm impressed with some of the stuff he did, but I can't give him more than a +1 competency.
You are one ugly mother.
But let's get dark now. Alien vs. Predator, Requiem. And I mean dark, I mean very dark. Really, really dark, as in can't see anything dark. Because the first film made $175 million at the box office, a sequel was greenlit. It answered the criticism of the last film being bloodless PG-13 by basically turning both franchises into an urban slasher. Here our Predator is again targeting aliens, but also small-town law enforcement, and also horny teenagers. See what I mean about the slasher angle? Just to clear the air here, we are only covering the actual Predator in the film. Although the Predalien, I think it's Predalien. Although the Predalien is part Predator, is far more xenomorph than Youtja. Now I'm gonna do my best here to get a good count, but this movie is so dark. It's hard to tell half the time what is actually happening. From what I at least can tell, the Predalien causes the Predator ship from the end of the first film to crash in suburbia, and it begins to infect humans and create more aliens. This is a bummer, so a Predator named Wolf decides to fly over to Earth and take care of the problem for us. He investigates the crash, takes the equipment, and blows up the ship. All very professional. Unlike previous movies, Wolf is interesting in that we spend a lot of time with him, in his point of view, and see how he hunts a specific target. He finds infected human bodies and melts them, like a good sanitation unit. But unfortunately, an officer spots him, and he chases him down and kills him. And then he decides he's going to hang the officer in a tree, after going through all that trouble to dispose of all the other bodies. So, not very professional. He tracks the aliens to the sewers, where he uses motion detectors to spot them and kills 2 more with his shoulder cannon. He locates the Predalien at a factory and tries to snipe him with his shoulder cannon, but I guess he can't hit a moving target, so that doesn't work out. He then takes out 1 more alien as it's feeding on a dumb teen bully at the pool. He finds the rest of the teenagers hiding out with cops and decides he's going to use them as bait. He captures one of the cops and ties him up to lure in the aliens. He kills the alien and then decides, I don't know, I guess I'll just hunt the cops and the teenagers too, for kicks and giggles. He blows off 2 cops' head and then kills an alien that bleeds out on a teenager and melts him. I don't know, does that count as 1 or does that count as 2? I mean, did he technically kill the teenager or did the alien kill it with its acid blood? But he's the one who made it bleed, so we'll call it 2 birds with 1 stone. He then is able to kill 2 more aliens as the teenagers and cops make their little getaway. Wolf then makes his way to the hospital where the Predalien is making itself a little army that's slowly starting to spread its way through town. In the hospital, Wolf kills 2 more aliens with his shoulder cannon, then uses acid to melt the 3rd. He then uses ninja stars to decapitate 2 more. And lastly, I don't know if he did it deliberately or if it just went through one of the aliens' bodies, but he also hits a cheerleader as a bonus, I guess. Unfortunately, a pizza delivery boy didn't like his girlfriend being turned into a pinup and attacks him with a machine gun, all while Wolf just kind of stupidly stares at him and takes it. He stands there like a dum-dum and just lets it happen until he's conveniently tackled down an elevator shaft. Let's fast forward a bit more, and Wolf and the Predalien end up on the roof together, trading blows like rubber monsters out of an old Godzilla film. Hey, now I think about it, maybe there is a reason they made this so dark after all. Wolf manages to dispatch 1 more alien with his whip before he ends up on the wrong end of the Predalien's tail, just like his predecessor, I guess. Hey, it's like poetry, it rhymes. I guess that's what you get for trying to have a boxing match with a monster with talons, teeth, and acid blood. But I'll still be kind and give him his 5 points for taking down the Predalien. By the end of the film, Wolf is actually one of the predators where we really do get to see his process. He makes some smart decisions, he makes some boneheaded decisions, but he has picked perhaps one of the toughest targets. Sure, he occasionally decides to kill random teenagers. In the end, I can't deny this guy was kind of, though, a one-man army, carving his way through the entire town single-handedly and racking up one of the highest kill counts with 5 humans, 12 aliens, and that one, of course, Predalien. For that, I'm going to give this hunter a +2 competency score, mostly for killing one of the most intimidating adversaries of the entire franchise. And even though this film maybe is one of the most reviled of the entire series, I'm going to say that's not worth nothing. And it's not poor Wolf's fault. He had his target he set out to kill. Let's be honest here, he did get him.
God help us all.
Next up, Predators. Now this is another one that kind of threw a wrench in things for me. This movie was pitched by Robert Rodriguez after the disappointment of Alien vs. Predator Requiem. And although he never got to make the movie, the central premise stayed together, with this group of killers who are abducted and taken to a nature preserve to be hunted by multiple predators. And it's that multiple predators part that's causing me my problem. This whole thing was envisioned as being to Predator what Aliens was to Alien. It's supposed to be almost a ramping up of the stakes. Though this film doesn't quite match the quality of, let's say, Alien to Aliens, it does provide one of the most unique backdrops of the entire franchise and an absolutely killer cold open. This is honestly one of my favorite Predator movies, which is why it is so disappointing that these hunters are less refined sportsmen and more like drunk hicks shotgunning beers as they take pot shots from their truck window. Because there's multiple Predators, we are actually going to rank all three as one team. And for the most part, the main antagonists here, they are a three-person team hunting our protagonists across the alien jungle. Now, there is a fourth Predator, and he did have a pretty cool fight scene, but he dies with absolutely no kill count. So we're gonna be mostly ignoring him. So, sorry, you weren't good at your job. In this movie, the targets here may be the most intimidating since the original. They are all hardened killers, selected for their ruthlessness, making them extremely dangerous. This may explain why our team of Predators decides to send in their dogs to do their dirty work. This was an entirely pointless action that gets a lot of their doggos killed and allows the group to easily track them back to their camp. And along the way, they do find a dead man who set up traps and was killed. Now, we cannot award this man to our Predator team because, as Topher Grace says, he's been dead for maybe weeks, and it could have been any Predator or any group of Predators who killed him. They also run into perhaps one of the dumbest traps ever, where the Predators have somehow taken out Machete without anyone noticing. I would have felt they would have looked around and gone like, I feel like we're missing someone here. They prop him up in the middle of a field and use voice imitation to try and draw the rest of the humans in. Look, a child could tell this was a trap. It's absolutely pointless, all right? It's juvenile. But as I said, our killers eventually track the dogs back to the Predator's camp, where they find 3 dead bodies hanging, so we will count these as kills. There's also a Predator skull on the ground. I'm not gonna count this one because, first of all, I don't know if it was another Predator they hunted, like the one they have tied to the tree, or if it's one of their own and he died while he was out on their little safari with them, okay? At the camp, Mahershala Ali gets speared by invisible hunters, who then try to shoot the rest of them with their cannons, but have the aim of drunk stormtroopers. Luckily, the group is rescued by a crazy Morpheus who leads them to his hideout and may be planning to, I don't know, cook them and loot their bodies. Adrian Brody is not too interested in being in a stew, so he fires off a shot to draw in the Predators. And first thing the Predators do is kill Morpheus by blowing off his head. One approaches Topher Grace in like this narrow hallway, and despite being clearly visible, decides to just stand there while he gets shot at. I guess he didn't have time to bleed. And if that wasn't bad enough, he then just stands there a second time as another dude just runs at him with grenades and blows him up. So,
What an idiot.
but if you think that's bad, a little later, his buddy decides it's a good idea to uncloak in front of a bunch of dudes with guns, and is just shocked when he gets shanked by Walton Goggins. And by the way, now that I'm mentioning it, this cast is stacked, okay? I didn't realize that until this rewatch. There are so many like great talents in here, and a lot of them at like more the beginning of their career before they hit stardom. Unfortunately, I don't think a prison shiv makes a very good weapon against a Predator, and as a result, Goggins gets his spine ripped out for his trouble. The Predator then chases them down and has a sword duel with a Yakuza gang member. He kills him, but he dies in the process. So far, these Predators are looking like Tweedledee, Tweedledum, and Tweedledum-Dum. It seems they cannot kill anyone without throwing themselves into the wood chipper in the process.
We have had a doozy of a day. There we were, minding our own business, when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these kids started killing themselves all over my property.
Yeah, this one right here, he dove head first right into the wood chipper.
The last surviving Predator, man, it's so sad to say that. Man, they're getting knocked out quick. Anyways, he manages to catch Topher Grace in a bear trap, but he easily breaks out, only to be then caught again in a net. He's having a bad day, okay? He needs to watch where he's walking. And just when things are starting to look up for our last Predator, whoopsies, remember that Predator they had just sitting at the camp, tied up? Well, when this guy gets back, he finds that Adrian Brody has set him free, and these idiots have left all their weapons just lying around unsecured. The prisoner Predator is able to equip a bunch of deadly gear and then nearly kills him. Nearly. Despite being half his size. Meanwhile, Adrian Brody runs off with his ship. He just flies off with it. Also left unsecured. Just nobody ever locked their doors, okay? Buy a key. This forces our poor Predator to blow up his own ride, and that looked expensive and embarrassing. But what do you know though? Brody was not on the ship after all, and comes back to give his best Arnold impersonation.
I'm here. Kill me. Do it now. Kill me.
He finds out that Topher Grace is an insane serial killer and decides to use him as live bait. And if you think this dum-dum is any smarter than his buddies who just got, blown up, no, he's not. He's not. He falls for the exact same trick as his buddy did. He approaches a very suspicious body and almost gets himself blown up by a bunch of grenades. And no, I'm not going to give him credit for Topher Grace's death, okay? Adrian Brody did all the heavy lifting. And from here, it's just all kind of downhill. Brody surrounds the Predator in a ring of fire, hides himself in the mud, and then hacks him to pieces with an axe. Now, where did he get the axe, you may be asking? Well, turns out the Predators also left this just lying around their camp. You think with a live captive, they would have secured things a little better. And so ends the Predator team's one bad hunting weekend. Again, I really enjoy this movie. I like its atmosphere, setting, its killer cast, and fun action. But there's no denying how incompetent this group is. There were 3 of these guys, okay? 3 of them. And even then, they still have one of the lowest kill counts together. Just 9 humans and 1 Predator. That's it, okay? The original Predator alone pretty much did that. As a result, I am taking that score and I'm dividing it up amongst the 3 of them, all right? Enough of this mediocrity. Do better, Predators. Do better.
Now, let's find a way off this fucking planet.
Next up, the Predators. Unfortunately, like Predators, there's multiple Predators here. I'd say Predators a lot, but what am I gonna do? At least this time, there's only 2 Predators. One for the first half, and then kind of this handoff for the second half. In this movie, Shane Black takes over as director, after being both an actor and screenwriter on the original film. He returns this almost tongue-in-cheek glib tone of the original with a cast of entirely smarmy characters. So our Predators are mostly dealing with shit-eating grins from the US government agents and a team of loonies who are a bunch of convicted military criminals. And all of them are far too eager to help Boyd Holbrook save his son from aliens. For some reason, I don't know why they're so emotionally invested in this kid that they're willing to go up against a killer alien. It's not really well explained. The first half follows a Predator who we're going to refer to as the Fugitive, just for clarification. His mission is to bring technology to the humans that will help them fight off the Youtja, which is a little odd given that he seems to be doing everything in his power to kill every human he meets and keep them from getting the technology. I guess he's a really conflicted soul. After crash landing, the first thing he does is kill 2 nearby soldiers, before he's downed by Boyd, who uses his own tech against him. The Fugitive then becomes a human lab rat, under the thumb of Sterling K. Brown. Full points must be given for him breaking himself out of the lab. He then proceeds to go on a legendary run. He uses one lady as a meat shield, kills a security guard with his claws, backhands another dude, then headshots somebody with a scalpel, splatters one on a window, and then we see him slash one more scientist in the background through the window. He exits the lab to splatter another dude on a wall, and then shoots 3 more men with a machine gun. Not even aiming, just shoot him from the hip. What a run, all right, what a run. He then uses a stolen mask to deduce that the idiot soldier sent the alien tech to his magical, mystical, autistic son. Now from here, things are about to get bloody. The Fugitive continues his rampage. We see 3 more dead bodies in the hall, and then 2 more down bodies in a stairwell. Then we see one body kind of like thrown over the edge, but I don't know, the fall didn't look that bad. I think he could have survived. We're not gonna give him that one. He exits the building and throws 1 more person off the roof. Our Fugitive then jumps into the back of a truck and kills 4 more and gives the driver a cartoon thumbs up from a dead hand. A classic. He tracks down the device he was trying to give to the humans, intending to kill the humans to keep them from having it, and then is killed by the arrival of the ultimate Predator who wants to keep the humans from having it. Yeah, that's great. It makes sense. Just think about it. The ultimate Predator does stomp him just into the ground. Now, the Fugitive's motivation could be incredibly head-scratching, but you can't deny the run this dude was on. He was an unstoppable killing machine, and his one mistake was trying to have a fist fight with a guy 3 times his size. Had he tried, I don't know, shooting him from a distance, he may have had better luck. Anyways, in the course of the 30 minutes that he was on screen, it was a near flawless run of 22 kills. I'm awarding this guy a +3. With that, our relay race now passes to the ultimate predator, a character who certainly does not live up to his name, especially when he looks like a series of ones and zeros half rendered into the environment. Now, he does come in hot, I'll give him that, but he cannot keep up that momentum. He arrives on Earth in his ship and shoots down a pilot, but unfortunately the pilot does bail out and there's a shoot, so no kill. Sometimes they just get away. Win some, lose some. He then sends out his dogs to catch the kid, but they all get killed or lobotomized. You know, I'm starting to think that predator dogs are pretty useless. They don't seem to do a whole lot. Next, our giant Goliath predator heads for the school, where he kills the much smaller fugitive. He finds his way back to the kid's house, somehow. I'm not sure how, it's not clear. Anyways, he manages to find the house and kills 2 agents guarding the mother. Later, during a good old-fashioned Mexican standoff, the ultimate predator gets a jump on Reek from Game of Thrones and kills him. He then proceeds to kill 5 more, the first by slamming him into an electric fence. Then he fires a grapple cord into another, which a car drives into, decapitating the 3 men inside. Not bad, I'm impressed, color me impressed. He then blows up the fugitive's ship and gives both the US agents and loonies a head start before hunting them through the woods. He bites off one person's head. He adds another to his kill tally by cutting a man in half with his wrist blades. Throws the Punisher with Tourette's into a tree, and even kills one half of Key and Peele.
Son of a bitch!
No, I love that show. On a technicality, the Punisher and Keegan both kill each other, but they were basically already dead and just putting each other out of their misery. So we're gonna give it to the ultimate predator. Sterling K. Brown then accidentally blows off his own head with the Predator's shoulder cannon. I had forgotten about this because I hadn't seen it since theaters. It was a shot so sudden, I did a double take and had to go back and check to see what actually happened. I have a suspicion that he died in a different way in the original cut of the movie, and they couldn't get him back for a lot of reshoots and just had to really quickly kill him. They did what they could. Now, it may be that he was killed by the Predator's own cannon, but that still isn't his kill, okay? Back to Tucker and Dale versus Evil, you do not get credit if they throw themselves into the wood chipper by themselves. It's not your kill. The ultimate predator then just sort of stands there as he's lit on fire and thrown off a cliff. Now, if you can't tell yet, this guy isn't some big brain strategist. He is all brawn. He also, very strangely, only seems to be bulletproof when the script needs him to be. Anyways, he kidnaps the magical, mystical, autistic kid because he wants to steal his genius genetic code. Always remember that autism in movies is always magic. In the process, the predator cuts a loony in half when he turns on his shield. But again, this one was kind of entirely accidental. He wasn't intending to kill him. He was just turning on his shield. So I'm not going to award any points for this one. Maybe that's a controversial choice, but he had no idea that dude was there. It's a mistake. Accidents happen, but accidents do not count towards hunting murder. And that's also gonna go for the other loony who yeets himself into the ship engine in one of the most unintentionally laugh out loud moments in the entire movie. And I don't use the word yeet that much, okay? Because that is a Gen Z word, but there is no better word to describe what's happening here. This allows Boyd to get inside the spaceship and mildly distract the ultimate predator into somehow crashing his ship in the exact same spot it just took off. It's like the Kronk meme, again.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
If all of this is starting to look bad on your big boy, you ain't seen nothing yet. He then proceeds to take a beatdown from a half-dead dude, a scientist with no combat training, and a 10-year-old child. He has his arm cut off, and then he's stabbed with his own arm, which then, for some reason, causes all his stuff to just blow up. Then he's dead. Despite the name of this guy, it's all style and no substance. Maybe he was more impressive in the original cut of the film. This movie was hacked to pieces in post, with an entirely new ending shot. Originally, the ultimate predator was supposed to go up against both humans and predators as allies in the climax, but that version is now gone. Despite some savage kills, he shows no actual skills as a hunter and goes down in maybe one of the most pathetic ways possible. An absolute embarrassment to his species. I'd say that's not all that ultimate after all.
What are you? Shut the f*** up.
Next up, Prey. Now this is one of my favorite Predators and one of my favorite Predator movies, brought to us by the now creative frontrunner of the franchise, Dan Trachtenberg. I really like the concept here of the Predator being more the prey, hence the title. Instead of stalking a group the whole movie, he is the one being stalked and studied. He seems to be an analogy for the exploration of the New World set against the untamed Americas, especially by those who are seeking to carve it up for themselves. But this is also a predator who seems the most sportsmanlike. He is trying to collect different trophies, but he's also trying to create a challenge for himself. As a result, he didn't really bring the best technology and seems to pick what he uses based on the situation, favoring close-up combat to give himself a real challenge. We see him trying his reflexes on a rattlesnake, and then he fights a wolf hand-to-hand. Now, I'm not going to give any points for the snake, okay? Despite that being actually probably the more deadly of the two, it just doesn't put up any fight. Now, I'll be courteous here, and I will give half a point for the wolf. I will, however, give him the full 2 points for taking down a big game, and that'll be for his hand-to-hand fight with a grizzly. Now, you can debate me if you want, but walking into a grizzly is like running into a walking tank. You don't want to fight a grizzly, don't do it. He eventually runs into the Native Americans and takes out 3 of them. He shoots one with a bolt, fights one with a spear and decapitates him, and spears the 3rd. He then chases down Amber Midthunder and cuts down a 4th native. However, like the original, this one seems to have a code of only killing challenges or threats, and when Amber Midthunder ends up caught in a bear trap, he completely ignores her, and there's no sport in it anymore. Instead, she's taken by fur traders who string her up with her brother as bait for the predator. He expectantly ignores them to go after the fur traders instead in one mad blitz. 2 fur traders are up on top of the hill watching the bait. You can see behind them one of them is killed. However, when they both turn around, we can very clearly see the 4 bodies, as well as what looks like, at the very corner, the legs of a 5th. The predator then approaches them menacingly. We don't see one of them die, but we can hear his screams. The 2nd man comes on running down the hill, but is hit by the predator's target-seeking bolts. But not all hunts are perfect. The primitive predator then steps right into a bear trap. This is probably his first misstep out of the entire movie, and I mean that quite literally. The ground. Watch where you're stepping. He then kills 2 more and uses his net to turn one into little cubes. Again, I love this thing, all right? Little cube net. More of it. We need more of the cube net. And then he takes the bear trap and just chucks it at one's head. Very practical. He quickly dispatches 5 more. 2 with his claws, 1 with a boomerang, 1 with an axe, and then he decapitates the last with his shield. 1 dude then tries to shoot him in the face, and it rebounds and kills him. And I'm gonna give this one to the predator because he looked like he was ready to kill him regardless of if the bullet rebounded or not. I think he was pretty well gone. Now here is where things get tricky. The predator finally flees the area, but leaves behind 3 tracking bombs. It is almost impossible to tell how many people were killed. So I'm just gonna assume the 4 that were close to the bomb were the ones caught by it, and leave it at that, okay? It gets too complicated otherwise. The predator then follows Midthunder back to the camp and accidentally steps on a dude who has been made invisible by a medicinal flower. Surprised, he then stabs him and kills him, obviously. The predator then fights Midthunder's brother hand to hand, and when the fight gets a little shaky, decides to cheat and turn on his shield to stab him in the back. Up to this point, he seemed very sporting, but this was a cheap move, and I do not like it. Midthunder, meanwhile, finds a fur trader, wounds him, and gives him a gun so he can actually be effective bait. She then takes the medicinal flower to lower her own body heat and essentially become invisible. The predator kills the trader, but Midthunder sneaks behind him and shoots his mask off. And this is where it starts to go downhill for our little alien hunter. For the most part, this was an alien who's looking for a challenge. However, Midthunder has been viewing him as prey this whole time. She's been studying him, his weaknesses, the environment, and then she uses it all against him flawlessly. She makes herself basically invisible, steals his mask, tricks him towards quicksand, and then uses his own targeting system to redirect his bolt right back at his face. The predator didn't necessarily do anything egregiously stupid. He just misunderstood that he was the one being hunted the entire time. Like the original, he just sort of met his match. He kills 1 grizzly, 1 wolf, and 26 humans. However, it has to be acknowledged that this predator did pick easier prey than most of the others. There's even a joke in the film where a bunch of traders fire off their muskets, look confused, and then rush to reload. Yeah, that's probably not gonna work. He was deadly, competent, sought challenges, but also was going up against much, much less advanced weapons. Overall though, I'm awarding him 4 points.
You think that I'm not a hunter like you, and I'm not a threat. That is what makes me dangerous.
Next, Killer of Killers. We're gonna rush through this one, not because it's animated and it's not any good, it's actually one of the better Predator movies in my opinion, with lots of style, imagination, and it plays with a lot of the period piece ideas that were introduced in Prey. The issue here is we're not following one Predator, but rather three in three different anthology stories. And most of these guys only get 15 minutes at most to leave, their best impression. Compare that to the others that get a full movie runtime. But if you want a speed rundown, the Shield Predator gets 5 kills and is largely incompetent as he goes out on ice with a sound weapon and slides around like an idiot before largely putting an anchor through his own head. The Bullet Predator does no better. He has the best kill count of a mere 6, but he is also piloting an intergalactic spaceship against a bunch of World War II fighters. Yet somehow, he still manages to fly through a bunch of flak cannons and be blown up by a single junker fighter that can barely fly. Now that is shameful, okay? That's bad. That's really bad. The last is probably the best of the bunch. The Sword Predator only has 5 kills, but like the primitive Predator in Prey, he seems to be looking more for an honorable challenge, and he fights 2 sword masters in a duel. The fact he loses it doesn't look great on him, but at least it seemed to be almost like a formal competition. And with that, we're moving to the final entry, Badlands. This one's still in theaters, so you're gonna have to forgive my lack of footage. One of the great things about Dan Trachtenberg's trilogy, Trachtenberg, I hope I'm saying his name right. It should be fine. I mean, I never get names wrong, so it'll be okay. You'll all forgive me, I'm sure. But anyways, the best thing about Trachtenberg's trilogy is that they all are very, very different and distinct from each other. The first one is more of a conventional Predator film with the creature coming down to hunt prey and then the protagonist using smarts and environment against it, while the second movie is the first major animated film that is an anthology of various period pieces. And this last film is where the Predator is for the first time the main protagonist, and we get to follow his hunt. As this is more of a character journey, our named Predator, Deck, starts as this incompetent and becomes more increasingly competent as the film progresses. He gets his butt kicked by both his father and brother in the film's opening. He is even forced to hide behind his brother, who dies protecting him. A shameful display for a Youtja, if I ever saw one. From there, he heads out to the hostile planet of Ghana to hunt a creature known as a Kalisk, all to win back the approval of his clan. Here, he's constantly needing to be saved by either the synthetic android Ellie Fanning or his cute-eyed monkey armadillo animal sidekick. Yeah, that sounds weird to say in a Predator movie. Even with all this help, Deck never succeeds in killing his primary target. And no, I'm not giving him any points for his heart growing 3 sizes in one day.
Max! Help me! I'm feeling...
He loses most of his tools in the beginning just out of neglect, decides to wander into an area of exploding plants, has to be rescued from a pterodactyl by Ellie Fanning, and then he proceeds to be easily manipulated by her on behalf of the Weyland-Yutani Company. Worst yet, his kill count is very low in the first half. Less kills, but more big game. He takes out a bone bison for, I guess, 2 points, we'll give him that, and then a Luna bug, which will also give 2 points as big game. He tries to fight the Kalisk and puts up one hell of a fight, but ultimately fails because the thing is basically immortal. Okay, it's not entirely his fault. However, evil Ellie Fanning shows up and uses Predator technology to capture the Kalisk. Hey, maybe you should have packed one of those ice grenades, eh, Deck? Just a thought. Where Deck slacks in the first half, he more than makes up for it in the second, as he becomes a more competent hunter, learning to use the environment and the planet to get what he wants, essentially. He is also considered a runt by Youtja's standards, which seems to have just made him more lightweight and nimble. Most of all, though, he seems to have particularly good eyesight. Now, it's been established in other movies that Predators usually have poor vision without their masks. It's why they use them. However, Deck seems to see just fine without it. In fact, I would argue better without it, which really makes you wonder why the Predators use them at all. However disappointing his early impressions may be, you can't deny Deck's late game efficiency. Now there's going to be a point of contention here. Do the synths count as kills? Technically speaking, they are not alive, but they are sentient, humanoid, and they may even be more durable than real humans. I'm gonna say they do count just as much as a normal human, and as such, I will be rewarding 1 point for each dead android. And with that rule in place, Deck then has a legendary final run. First, he convinces this one synth to open a bomb and blow himself up. Not really a direct kill, but he does use his smarts, and he does die, so we'll give it to him. From there, he just mows through these robots. An endless killing spree that racks up 11 kills before he even gets to his magnum opus. Here, he lures the synths into a kill box with a series of bombs, where he blows up what may amount to a small army. Now, when I saw this movie the first time, I tried to keep track of all this, but the deaths came so fast I had to see it a second time just to get a reference point. I counted 23 dead in this one sequence, bringing the total up to 34 robots. We'll add one more with the death of evil Ellie Fanning. Now, some will say she was in a giant mech and that should count for more, but in this case, I do agree with Gimli.
That still only counts as one.
And in this case, Deck had a lot of help to take her down, so I feel okay with giving him just the 1 point for the killing blow. But if you think our little Predator is done, think again. He then returns home to kill 2 of his Predator clansmen and then kill his own father. However, in this case, he doesn't land the killing blow, but single-handedly defeats him, and he kind of has him restrained and then has his monkey armadillo bite off his head. Again, we're giving it to him. And with that, we have what is easily one of the most insane runs of any Predator film. Let's be honest, Deck does have the benefit of being the protagonist and having the most screen time. He also has the benefit of plot armor and being the only survivor on this list. But there's disadvantages too. He's extremely incompetent for the first half and extremely competent in the second half. So I'm going to be fair and split that difference. I'm going to give him a 0 competency score just because he's both sides of the spectrum. And it doesn't matter. Trust me, he won't need that bonus anyways. With that, we now have our final scores. Here are the scores for the Predators based purely on kill count alone. Now let's add our competency modifiers. So from this, there seems to be a very clear winner. But if you're not satisfied, I can see where it would be debated. Who is really the best Predator? Well, if you go by nothing but kill count, it would go to Deck by pretty much a landslide of 40 kills. However, some may be typing at their keyboard already that androids shouldn't count. Okay, in that case, you would have to give it to the primitive Predator from Prey with 28 kills. But then you may be saying, yeah, but he had easier targets, okay? He was going after people with muskets and bows and arrows. Okay, then you would have to go to the 26 kills from Predator 2. But on that one, he kind of went down like a complete loser, in which case, you could look at the highest competency score of 5 with the original Predator. There's a lot of different ways to look at it, including one you may not have thought of. Predator was originally meant to be a double meaning. It could have referred to the original monster, which originally was referred to as the Jungle Hunter, or Predator could refer to Arnold Schwarzenegger's character. In Predators, they outright say this by calling the group of killers Predators.
It's because we are predators.
So if the real Predator isn't necessarily a Youtja alien, then who is the character with the highest kill count? Now, some rack up quite the stack of bodies, but none of them get even close to our top contenders here on our list, except for one, and you'll never guess who it is in a million years. Yes, it's this guy. Now, who, you may be asking? This here unnamed pilot is from perhaps the most loathed Predator movie of all time, Alien vs. Predator Requiem. In the final moments of the movie, this faceless character flies out his jet and nukes an entire small American town, along with hundreds of aliens. His body count is very likely in the upper hundreds, if not thousands. I didn't check the population and I didn't count all the little dots on the map. I'm dedicated, I'm not that dedicated. If we are going purely by the most kills ever by any character, human or alien, Mr. Pilot here is the real unsung lethal force in the franchise. But all of that, it sounds to me and probably sounds to you like an unintentional cop-out. So we're gonna go back and stick with my original model. A Predator who showed both a high body count and high competency. I'm naming Deck, the underdog runt of the Youtja, as the real killer of killers and the best hunter of the Predator franchise. But tell me who you think is the most deadly Predator in the comments down below. But as always, be sure to leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and keep those reels turning. Thank you.